You are not weak. You have simply lived too long as someone asking for permission to exist. And if you do not change that right now, the world will continue to step on you without a hint of remorse. Calm confidence does not appear when you try to prove yourself, but is born when you understand your value so clearly that you no longer need to chase anything. When I look at you and say this, I want you to feel a simple yet powerful truth that your strength has never been in how you make others believe in you, but in how you believe in yourself even when no one stands with you. Dangerous confidence is not loud, not chaotic, not seeking attention or approval. It is the state where you walk into a room without saying a word and people still feel the powerful energy radiating from you. It is a strength that cannot be faked because it is built from within, from the times you faced your fears, from the moments you stood back up alone when there was no one left to lean on, from the decisions you made even when the result was not clear. When you understand this, you will realize that most insecurity in life does not come from what others think of you, but from how quickly you react to everything around you. A single comment, a glance, a small rejection is enough to shake your mind because you place your strength in the hands of others. But when you learn to stand firm within yourself, when you are no longer carried away by the noise outside, you unlock a completely different kind of resilience. I want you to picture this like a movie scene. You stand in the middle of a crowded city, strong winds blowing, the sound of traffic rumbling, everything moving in chaos, but you stand still, your breath steady, your eyes focused, nothing strong enough to pull you away from the silence inside. That is calm confidence. It is not forced discipline or a coldness you try to display. It is the clarity of someone who knows who they are, knows what matters, and knows what is worthy of their energy. When you reach this state, you no longer need to chase anyone, no longer need to pretend to be strong, no longer need to convince anyone to believe in you. You only need to stand firmly in your own power, and the world adjusts itself to align with you. And from this moment forward, you begin the real journey of becoming the strongest version of yourself, a version that nothing can disturb, no one can control, and no circumstance can shake. You begin the journey of stepping out of unconscious reactions, and you realize the first truth that you are not as weak as you once believed, but you have simply allowed your mind to operate on old habits for too long. Every time you get angry, every time you rush to justify yourself, every time you get swept away by a criticism, you are not truly making a choice. You are only reacting like a machine already programmed. And to enter the state of dangerous confidence, the first step is to realize that you can completely cut the power of that programming. I want you to imagine this feeling as clearly as the opening scene of a film where the camera zooms in on your face as you stand in a familiar situation. Perhaps someone doubting you, someone judging you, someone saying something sharp enough to touch your pride. Before, you would react immediately, your heart racing, your breath quickening, your mind burning with countless responses and arguments ready to burst out. But this time, something different happens. You do not react. You pause. You keep your eyes steady, but your mind opens into a vast space, like the night sky, suddenly revealing stars. In that moment, you begin to understand that real power does not lie in how you respond, but in your ability to choose whether you should respond at all. Most people live in automatic reflex, as if pulled by invisible strings. Every word from others like a fuse, ready to ignite. When someone insults them, they react. When someone doubts them, they scramble to prove themselves. When rejected, they shrink. When praised, they expand unconsciously. All of it is reaction. And constant reaction turns them into actors in someone else's story instead of the leaders of their own. When you begin stepping away from those reactions, you step out of the old role and become the one directing the stage. Power lies in the moment you pause. A moment only a few seconds long, but it can change entirely how you experience the world. That is when you realize you are not your emotions, you are only observing them. You are not your fear, you are only watching it appear and fade. You are not the judgments people throw at you, you are only listening as they pass. People think strength is striking back quickly and sharply, but true strength is not allowing anything to force a reaction out of you without your permission. I want you to remember a time in your life when you reacted too quickly and then regretted it. A message you should not have sent. A long explanation you did not need to give. An anger you did not control. A decision made because you were triggered instead of being calm. All of these are examples of unconscious reaction. People often believe they are acting in such moments, but in truth they are being led by fear, defensiveness, and a fragile ego. Now imagine the second film scene. You are still in the same situation, but this time instead of reacting, you allow silence to wrap around you like armor. You observe the sensations in your chest, your stomach, your throat, where emotions usually gather. You do not try to push them away, but you also do not let them control you. You let them flow like water passing by your feet without weight. In those few seconds, you reclaim the agency you have unconsciously given to others for so long. When you detach from reaction, you become the one who can learn from every situation rather than being swallowed by them. You begin to see that every word from others only reveals them, not you. A rude person shows their insecurity. Someone mocking you shows their lack of confidence. Someone rushing to judge you reflects their own fear. When you see the world this way, you are no longer swept along and you become the only one who remains calm amid everyone else's chaotic reactions. Stepping away from unconscious reaction is not avoidance, but an upgrade in awareness. You no longer allow the world to press the buttons that control your emotions. You no longer let old instincts drive your actions. You begin to see the structure of every event clearly and realize that most of what once bothered you has no real power. It is only powerful when you unconsciously react to it. And when you do not react, it loses its power. That is the first step toward inner freedom. It is also the first step into dangerous confidence, the state in which you become someone no one can easily touch, shake, or make you lose yourself. This is the moment you begin learning to stand above your instincts and step into the role of the leader of your life. And from this moment, everything will change. San, the inner voice, is the place where all strength begins and also where all limitations are born. And when I say this to you, I want you to clearly feel how every quiet thought in your mind has been guiding you throughout your life without you even realizing it. Every time you walk into a room and feel yourself shrink, it is not because others are bigger, but because the inner voice has told you that you are not enough. Every time you hesitate before an opportunity, it is not because you lack ability, but because the inner voice repeats things someone once said to you in the past. Every time you feel you must work very hard to be respected, it is not because you are weak, but because the inner voice has made you believe your worth must be proven. That voice does not only speak inside your mind, it shapes your posture, your eyes, your breathing. It decides whether you walk through life as someone who seeks or someone who chooses, as someone afraid or someone in control. You can try to change habits, change actions, change goals, but if you do not change the inner voice, you remain the same person with old limits repeated in new language. And the next step to becoming the strongest version of yourself is learning to master that voice. I want you to picture a movie scene. You stand in front of a mirror not to fix your appearance, but to look deeper into the things you say to yourself every day. When you see your reflection looking back, you realize something frightening, that you have said things to yourself that, if someone else said them to you, you would feel hurt and angry. You have blamed yourself for even the smallest mistakes. You have compared yourself to others, even when there was no reason. You have allowed old judgments to become background noise you hear so often that you no longer notice they are destroying you little by little. The inner voice is either a teacher or a destroyer. It either lifts you up or pulls you down. And the most important thing is that you have allowed it to say anything without control. Now is the time to change that. The first step to mastering the inner voice is realizing you are not the words you hear in your head. You are the one listening to them. This moment is like standing on a shaking boat and suddenly realizing you can step onto another boat that is steady. You are no longer carried away by emotional currents. You stand on the shore and watch them flow. When you hear the familiar voice saying you are not good enough, You simply ask whether this is truth or just a habit of the mind. When you hear the voice saying you will fail, you simply ask whether there is real evidence for it. When you hear the voice saying others are judging you, you simply ask whether you are sure it is real or just projecting your fear onto everything around you. Once you question it, that voice loses power. It is no longer a command. It becomes just a sound, and you can choose not to listen. After you recognize it, the next step is to change the way that voice speaks to you. Not with fake positivity, not with self-delusion, but with truth. The truth that you have overcome things harder than what you are facing now. The truth that you have stood up many times when everything seemed to be over. The truth that you have grown far more than who you were a few years ago. The truth that your worth does not depend on how others react. You do not need to exaggerate yourself, but you must not continue to shrink inside your mind. You only need to speak to yourself with the respect you deserve. Imagine another movie scene. You are preparing to enter an important meeting. In the past, the inner voice would rise with words that made you anxious and doubtful. This time, you change your breathing, you stand straighter, and the inner voice speaks differently. It says you have prepared well. It says you do not need to prove anything, you only need to show up. It says you have overcome challenges greater than this meeting. When the voice in your head changes, the way you walk changes, the way you look at others changes, the way you make decisions changes. You become truly present in your own life. Many people do not know the inner voice can be trained like a muscle. The more you speak to yourself with powerful and respectful language, the more the mind believes it is true. And when the mind believes, action changes. Changed actions create new results. New results create new beliefs. That is the loop of strength. And you are the one who starts that loop. Once you master your inner voice, you no longer need anyone to remind you to be strong. You do not need anyone to validate your worth. You become the one who lifts yourself up when the world tries to pull you down. You become the one who gives yourself calm when life becomes chaotic. You become the one who knows that no matter what happens, you will always find a way to rise again. And from here, you begin moving into a form of confidence that cannot be shaken by the words of others, by rejection, by difficulty, or even by your own fears. When the inner voice stands with you, the world can no longer stand against you the way it once did. And that is the foundation for you to step into the next part of the journey. Sir, true confidence cannot exist without self-respect. And as you enter this part of the journey, I want you to feel clearly that every value you want to build begins with how you treat yourself. Not how you treat yourself when you succeed, when you reach your goals, when everything is going well, but how you treat yourself in difficult moments, when you are tired, when you make mistakes, when you fail, when you are rejected, when you feel not enough. Self-respect is not pride or showy self-importance, but the ability to stand on your own side, even when you are the only one doing so. And if you do not respect yourself, the world will never respect you in the way you want. I want you to remember a moment when you broke a promise to yourself. Maybe you promised to change a habit, promised to focus more, promised to start a plan, promised to end a toxic relationship, promised to stop chasing validation, but then you abandoned that promise because you were tired, because you were lazy, because you were afraid, or because you thought no one would know, so it did not matter. But one person knew, and that person was you. Every time you betray yourself, your self-respect decreases a little, and the dangerous part is not that you notice it at that moment, but that you feel it as a weight pulling you down day after day. Someone who does not respect themselves cannot walk straight, cannot speak clearly, cannot hold eye contact, cannot set boundaries, cannot stand firm when shaken. They become easily swayed, easily controlled, easily small in front of others. And the saddest part is they do not realize they have taught themselves to live that way. Building the foundation with self-respect means you begin treating yourself with the seriousness you once reserved only for others. It means keeping promises to yourself the way you keep promises to someone you respect. It means placing your worth on the table clearly and not accepting anything that violates it. It also means you no longer ask for validation, but give it to yourself through action instead of words. Imagine a movie scene. You sit in a quiet room with only dim light on your face. On the table is a sheet of paper listing small promises you once made to yourself but abandoned. You look at each line and realize that every broken promise is not just an unfinished task, but a reminder that you did not stand on your own side. And then you place your hand on that paper, not to blame yourself, but to decide that from today your self-respect is the highest priority. When you respect yourself, you begin to act differently. You do not accept invitations you do not want. You do not agree to requests that cross your limits. You do not allow anyone to speak to you in a way that makes you feel small. You do not stay in places that hurt you just because you fear change. You do not say yes when you know the real answer is no. And most importantly, you begin to trust every action you take because you know you are living according to the standard you set for yourself, and you no longer lose it easily for temporary comfort or pressure from others. Self-respect creates boundaries, and boundaries are not to isolate yourself, but to protect your energy, time, mind, values, and peace. Someone with self-respect does not need to shout to defend themselves. They simply say one short sentence that is not for me, and the calmness in their voice makes others step back. But self-respect is not only about saying no, it is also about how you say yes. When you respect yourself, you say yes to better things, bigger things, things more aligned with your path. You say yes to discipline. You say yes to action, even when your mind wants to delay. You say yes to hard, but necessary steps. You say yes to facing truth instead of avoiding it. You say yes to the version of yourself you want to become. And each choice like that is a brick building the solid foundation of unshakable confidence. Self-respect also requires you to be honest with yourself, not sugarcoating problems, not searching for excuses to avoid responsibility, not blaming circumstances when you know you could have done better. This honesty may make you uncomfortable, but it makes you stronger. It is the clearest mirror helping you see yourself not to criticize, but to correct your direction. Someone with self-respect is not perfect, but they have one thing others do not: the ability to never abandon themselves no matter the situation. They may fall, but they do not let the fall diminish their self-image. They learn, adjust, stand up, and continue. And that creates a powerful presence, a kind of energy that makes others feel they are standing before someone who cannot be easily shaken by anything. When you build your foundation with self-respect, you do not need confidence by acting strong. You become truly strong. You do not need to try to make others respect you. Others respect you because of how you respect yourself. And when you reach this state, you enter a deeper level of the journey where dangerous confidence begins taking shape from what you do every day instead of what you try to prove to the world. Woo! The need for approval is one of the strongest chains keeping people trapped in the small version of themselves. And as you enter this part of the journey, I want you to look directly at the truth that most of the things that make you anxious, afraid, or doubtful are not difficult in themselves, but come from your attempt to do everything in a way that earns approval from others. You were taught early that safety comes from being praised, recognized, appreciated, and accepted. You became used to looking at other people's faces to measure your own worth. Every glance, every reaction, every word from them unconsciously becomes the ruler that determines your emotions. When someone likes you, you feel valuable. When someone disagrees with you, you feel yourself shrink. When someone rejects you, you feel unworthy of respect. But you do not realize that by living this way, you hand the entire power over your happiness and strength to someone else. When you need approval to feel okay, you will always live in fear of rejection. And that fear makes you easy to manipulate, easy to sway with the crowd, easy to lose yourself just to gain a temporary sense of safety. Freeing yourself from the need for approval is not becoming cold or emotionless. It is taking back the right to define yourself from the hands of others. I want you to imagine a movie scene. You walk into a crowded room. In the past, you would study every reaction to see if you were being welcomed. You would adjust your voice, your smile, your gestures to match the expectations of the crowd. But this time is different. You walk in calmly. You do not look around for approval. You do not search for someone's eyes to confirm that you are okay. You walk in as someone who does not need to borrow worth from anyone. That feeling is not loud but powerful, like the sound of an underground river. When you no longer need approval, you begin choosing with clarity instead of fear. You say what needs to be said without worrying whether others agree or disagree. You decline what does not fit without feeling guilty. You leave relationships that make you smaller without fearing you will be called ungrateful. You make decisions without waiting for permission. You act like someone who knows their worth does not lie in the eyes of others, but in how firmly they stand, regardless of how those eyes change. When you live this way, something interesting happens. Those who once underestimated you begin seeing you differently. Those who once controlled you lose their power. Those who once used silence to make you anxious become ineffective. You become someone who cannot be controlled by criticism or bought by praise. But to reach this state, you must face a difficult truth that the need for approval comes from your deepest fears. The fear that you are not enough. The fear that if no one likes you, you will be isolated. The fear that if someone disagrees with you, it must mean you are wrong. You have believed these things for so long that you forget approval is only an opinion, not truth. People can like you today and not like you tomorrow. People can support you when you succeed and turn away when you struggle. People can praise you for one decision and criticize you for another. If you live according to these shifting tides, you will always be standing on water, never able to place your feet on solid ground. Imagine the second movie scene. You receive a criticism. In the past, it would tighten your chest, make you worry, make you try to change yourself to please that person. But this time, you stand still, breathe slowly, and observe. You ask yourself whether the criticism has value, whether it comes from someone who truly understands you or is merely a reflection of their own insecurity. You do not rush to respond. You do not rush to explain. You simply observe, and through that observation, you take back all your power. Freeing yourself from the need for approval does not mean you stop needing anyone. It means you stop being dependent on the judgment of anyone. You still love, still connect, still contribute, still build, but you no longer do everything just to soothe a fearful ego. You act because it is right for your path. You act because it reflects your true values. You act because it makes you a stronger, clearer, and calmer version of yourself. The person who does not need approval from others is always the one who is respected most, not because they try to earn respect, but because the freedom in the way they stand in themselves makes others unable to dismiss them. When you reach this point, you realize the approval you once chased was the least important thing in your life. You no longer ask for it. You no longer search for it. You no longer lose yourself for it. And when you no longer need it, that is exactly when it comes to you the most. That is the paradox of true strength. And that is also the moment you move to a deeper layer of the journey, where you are no longer manipulated by other people's opinions, but become the one who chooses the direction of your own life. Luke, silence is what most people fear the most, but it is the strongest tool of those with deep inner strength. As you step into this part of the journey, I want you to clearly feel how silence can turn you from someone easily pulled by emotional waves into someone whose presence alone is enough to make others cautious. From the moment people are born, they are taught how to speak, how to explain, how to present, how to persuade, but very few are taught how to be silent. They live in fear of the space between sentences, afraid of being misunderstood if they do not explain everything, afraid others will think wrongly if they do not respond immediately, afraid of silence because silence forces them to face themselves. What they do not know is that when you fear silence, you give your power to noise. You let the world decide your breathing. You let other people's emotions decide your reactions. You let their tension seep into your mind. And that is exactly what keeps you defensive, constantly chasing, constantly proving, constantly explaining, constantly trying to ease discomfort through words. But when you learn to use silence, you begin stepping into a completely different kind of strength. Imagine a movie scene. You are standing in the middle of a heated argument. The other person's voice grows louder. Their pace quickens. They try to push you into responding, explaining, proving, admitting what they want to hear. In the past, you would react immediately. You would feel the urge to speak to protect yourself. But this time, you stand still. Your breath slows like still water beneath ice. Your eyes do not waver. You do not fight back with words or emotion. You let silence wrap around you. In that moment, the power shifts completely. The one who talks the most is always the one who loses control first. They reveal their anxiety, their insecurity, their impatience, their desire to win. The one who stays silent is the one holding the advantage because they refuse to be dragged into someone else's emotional chaos. Silence allows you to see the situation clearly instead of being pulled into it. It makes others pause, hear their own voice, and realize they are being driven by emotion rather than reason. Often, you do not need to say anything because your silence alone is enough to slow them down, make them self-correct, even make them feel embarrassed about their own outburst. Silence is not weakness, it is presence. It is the message that you are not easily shaken. It is how you show the world you do not need to step into every small battle. You only choose the battles worthy of you. Remember this. The one who needs to speak loudly is the one trying to prove something. The one who is strong does not need to prove anything. And their silence often carries more weight than 100 words from others. But to use silence as a form of power, you must overcome your greatest fear, which is the fear of being misunderstood. The truth is, you cannot avoid being misunderstood. Whether you speak much or little, whether you explain or stay quiet, people will interpret things through their own fears and perspectives. Once you accept this, you no longer see explaining as a duty. You speak when needed, and you stay silent when appropriate. You no longer react to please others. You react to protect your inner peace. Imagine another movie scene. You are sitting in a meeting. Someone intentionally mocks you or asks a question meant to attack you. The whole room looks at you waiting for your reaction. In the past, you would rush to respond, trying to make sure no one thinks you are afraid. But this time, you look at them, take a slow breath, and let a few seconds of silence pass. Those seconds change the entire room. Your silence sends the message that you are not pushed into defense. You are observing, you are considering, you are choosing your response from strength instead of fear. And then you answer with a short, clear, sharp sentence, without emotion, without being pulled in. The room will remember that answer more than any long explanation because it was spoken from the position of the one leading, not the one cornered. That is the art of silence. It not only protects you from unnecessary battles, but makes every word you say afterward carry more weight. People who are silent at the right time are never overlooked. They do not speak much, but each sentence makes others listen. The most important part is that silence gives you time to see the true nature of people. When you do not rush to respond, others reveal their arrogance, their fear, their insecurity, their impatience. They reveal more when you say less, and you learn more about them when you do not interrupt. Silence is how you gather information, how you see the true motives of the person in front of you, how you avoid being pulled into the emotional storms of others. And when you use silence as a subtle shield, you realize you have entered a higher level of awareness, a level where others act from emotion but you act from choice, a level where others react but you choose your reaction, a level where you do not need to speak loudly to be heard. You only need to be present in the right way to make others lower their voices. When you master this art, you walk through the world with a calmness that cannot be ignored, and that is why silence is always the mark of those with true strength. It is not emptiness. It is the space where you keep your power from being scattered, triggered, or pulled into things unworthy of you. And from here, you step into the next part of the journey where you learn how your presence speaks before your words do. See, before you say a single word, your body has already told your story, and what most people never realize is that the world always believes body language more than spoken language. When you enter a space, the way you stand, the way you walk, the way you look, the way you breathe, all send clear signals about who you are inside. You can say you are confident, but if your shoulders drop, your eyes avoid contact, your steps rush, your body is telling a different story, and the world will believe that story far more than anything you try to explain. When you learn to let your body speak before your words do, you not only change how others see you, but also change how you see yourself. Because the body does not just reflect the mind, it can lead the mind. When you adjust your body language, you are adjusting your perception, your emotions, and your attitude without forcing yourself into fake confidence. I want you to imagine a movie scene. You walk into a crowded room, bright lights overhead, the sound of quiet conversations around you, glances passing by, and then moving on. In the past, you would lower your head slightly, walk faster to avoid attention, feeling like you were stepping into a space that did not belong to you. But this time, you walk in differently. Your back is straight, like a firm line. Your shoulders are open, not tense, but not collapsed. Your chin tilts slightly up, not arrogant, but enough to create a strong line between your gaze and your direction. Your steps are slow, clear, deliberate, not rushed, not hurried. The feeling you create is like a character entering the frame with calm inner strength. You do not need to speak, you do not need to impress, you do not need to reveal anything. You simply appear, and your presence creates its own space that others cannot ignore. You do not push into the room adjusts to you. That is the power of body language. It is not loud but sharp, like a spotlight on the main character. Your body sends a message that you belong here, that you are not seeking approval, that you are not pulled by the noise around you, that you carry a steady energy very few people possess. And then something else happens. Your mind begins to believe what your body is expressing. You become calmer, you feel clearer, you stop thinking about familiar worries, you stop asking yourself whether people are judging you. You step fully into the present moment. That is why small changes in body language create huge changes in the mind. When the body stands firm, the mind stands firm. When the body expands, the mind expands. When the body breathes slowly, the mind breathes slowly. When the body moves with intention, the mind moves with intention. Strong body language is not performance. It is not a constant forced smile. It is not stiff posture. It is not trying to create fake dominance. Strong body language is simplicity. It is the way you do not shrink yourself. It is the way you claim the exact space you need. It is the way you maintain eye contact without avoiding. It is the way you walk with purpose. It is the way you place your hands, shoulders, and breath in a stable state. Imagine the second movie scene. You are in an important conversation. Someone asks you a difficult question. In the past, your body would react instantly. Maybe you would lower your head, clench your hands, shift your eyes, hold your breath, your heartbeat rising, your facial muscles tightening. All of it showed you were defensive. But now, you pause for one beat. You breathe slowly. You keep your gaze steady. You let a few seconds of silence pass without fear. You tilt your head slightly. Your body opens instead of collapsing. And then you answer with a low, slow, concise voice. In that moment, it is not just your answer that earns respect. It is the calmness of your body language that people feel the most. In that moment, you are not just speaking. You are showing that you are not easily shaken by pressure or tension. In that moment, you become the one leading the energy of the room. And people will pay attention not because you try, but because you show up the right way. The important thing to remember is that your body is always speaking before you open your mouth. When you enter a tense situation, let your body send the message that you are not afraid. When you are in a situation full of expectations, let your body send the message that you belong. When you face sarcasm or challenge, let your body send the message that you are not shaken. When you stand before a big opportunity, let your body send the message that you are strong enough to take it. Body language does not only change how the world sees you, but changes how you see yourself. Once your body stands in the position of someone strong, your mind follows. And when your body and mind speak the same language, you become someone others cannot ignore. From here, you step into the next part of the journey where you not only escape unconscious reaction, but become the one leading instead of the one always following the events of life. The most important shift in the journey to becoming the strongest version of yourself is leaving the state of reacting and stepping into the role of leading. When you live in reaction, you are always behind life. You wait to see what someone says to decide your emotions. You wait to see what happens to determine your actions. You wait for others to agree or disagree to know whether you should continue or stop. You are constantly pulled by the emotional currents of others, and you think it is normal because you have lived that way for so long. But the truth is, you were never born to live like that. You were born to lead yourself. You were born to create your own rhythm. You were born to walk with intention instead of reaction. And when you begin to realize this, your entire inner world changes completely. I want you to imagine a movie scene. You are sitting in a cafe, the sound of conversations around you, the clink of a spoon against a cup, a breeze brushing the window. A sudden message appears, and your heart jumps with a familiar emotion. In the past, you would react immediately. You would reply quickly. You would let your mind run into unnecessary stories. You would let emotion lead your actions. But this time, you look at the screen, feel the emotion rise, and let it pass. You do not react. You do not act immediately. You put the phone down and choose to keep your breath steady. In that moment, for the first time in a long time, you are leading yourself instead of letting yourself be pulled. And that small moment has the power to change your entire life. When you lead yourself, you stop letting the world decide your rhythm. You create your own rhythm. When someone is angry, you do not get pulled in. When someone mocks you, you do not immediately feel the need to prove yourself. When someone tries to provoke you, you do not let them control your emotions. You choose how you show up. You choose how you respond. You choose the moment you speak. You choose what is worth responding to and what is not worth your energy. That is the way of a leader. Many people think leading means imposing, controlling others, giving direction to everyone around you. But no, true leadership begins with self-control. A leader is someone who is not pulled by temporary emotions, not shaken by sudden situations, and does not let the world define their speed or direction. A leader knows that any storm outside becomes a real storm only when they allow it to enter their inner world. I want you to imagine the second movie scene. You are in a tense meeting. Someone speaks out against you. Their voice is loud, their words sharp, their eyes challenging. In the past, you would react immediately. You would try to defend yourself. You would be pushed by emotion into an unnecessary battle. But this time, you sit still, your breath even, your back straight, your eyes focused. You let them speak. You let the tension move around you without entering your center. And when you speak slowly, clearly, briefly. No defensiveness, no justification, no getting pulled into someone else's chaos. The whole room feels the shift. You are no longer reacting. You are leading the pace of the conversation. Your calmness dulls their sharpness. Others start seeing you as an anchor, a stable presence in the noise. That is the essence of leadership. You do not need to try. You simply stand in your own strength. When you react, you chase the world. When you lead, the world adjusts to you. When you react, you are easy to control. When you lead, you create influence. When you react, you are at a disadvantage. When you lead, you hold the advantage. When you react, you are a player in someone else's game. When you lead, you create your own game. The hardest part is letting go of the habit of trying to force things through reaction. Reaction makes you feel like you are doing something. But in truth, you are just moving through a maze of emotions. Leadership makes you feel calm, strong, and clear because you are no longer pushed by what is outside your control. Remember this. You cannot lead if you are still triggered by the smallest things. You cannot lead if you still try to prove you are right in meaningless arguments. You cannot lead if you still let the emotions of others pull your energy down. Leadership does not come from dominance. It comes from stability. When you are stable, others adjust to you. When you are calm, others change the way they speak to you. When you are clear, others naturally show respect. And when you reach this state, you not only lead yourself, but also lead the space you walk into. This is not an inborn skill. It is the result of practice, awareness, and determination. And when you reach this state, you will look back and realize that most of the reactions you once thought were necessary brought no value at all. You spent too much time worrying about things you could have ignored in silence. From this point forward, you step into the world not as someone who chases events, but as someone who creates events. Not as someone who waits for something to happen, but as someone who decides what will happen. Not as someone pulled by surrounding energy, but as someone who sets the energy. And when you live this way, you become someone no one can overlook, someone with an inner power that requires no noise, someone who truly steps into the role of a leader. Dangerous confidence is not born in soft, comfortable safety, but forged in the moments that make you uncomfortable, anxious, fearful, and uncertain. As you enter this part of the journey, I want you to understand a truth. Few people dare to admit that discomfort is the training ground of the strong. No one becomes unshakable by avoiding pressure. No one becomes their sharpest self by avoiding situations that make their hands tremble. No one gains deep calmness by living only in moments of ease. Every form of growth you have today came from moments when you wanted to run but chose to stay. So if you want to step into a kind of confidence that no one can break, you must learn to step into discomfort instead of avoiding it. I want you to imagine a movie scene. You stand in front of a door. Behind it is something you have always avoided, maybe a difficult conversation, a new opportunity that makes you anxious, a challenge you do not want to face, a rejection you fear hearing, or a new path you are not sure you are strong enough to walk. In the past, whenever you stood before this door, you turned away, telling yourself it was not the right time, convincing yourself you were not ready, letting fear pull you back to safety. But this time, you place your hand on the door, and even though your heart is beating fast, your breath uneven, your mind producing a dozen reasons to retreat, you open it anyway. That moment is the first step in breaking the old version of yourself. That moment is when real growth begins. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is the teacher life sends to push you forward. It is the mirror showing you where your weaknesses still live. It is the evidence that you are entering territory others never dare touch. People think courage means not being afraid. But true courage is moving forward even while shaking. When you embrace discomfort, you not only grow stronger but also freer. Free from fear of failure, free from judgment, free from the mental stories you once used to shield yourself. Imagine the second movie scene. You are standing on a stage or in a situation where your heart beats so hard you can feel each pulse. Your body sends signals telling you to retreat, but you stand firm. You take a deep breath again, then again. You let discomfort wash through your body. You do not fight it. You do not resist it. You do not try to make it disappear. You allow it, then you move anyway. When you do this, you send a message to your mind that discomfort does not control you. You control it. And from that moment, your mind begins to learn something new, that you do not need to avoid difficulty to feel safe. You can stand steady right in the middle of it. This is what most people do not know. Every time they avoid discomfort, they teach the mind that discomfort is danger. But every time you face it, you teach the mind that you are strong enough to overcome it. And the truth is, the mind always listens to the message repeated more often. If you avoid discomfort, fear grows. If you face discomfort, you grow. The strong are not stronger because of talent, but because of the number of times they stepped into discomfort without retreating. So you must see discomfort as training. Just like muscle grows only under pressure, the mind grows the same way. Confidence grows the same way. All growth requires a certain level of stress. If you avoid stress, you avoid growth. If you avoid challenge, you avoid your best self. Imagine the third movie scene. You are preparing to make an important decision. The old version of you would choose safety, choose the path with less pain, choose the option that keeps you away from risk. But this time, you choose what grows you. You choose what scares you a little. You choose what pushes you outside your comfort zone. Because you know every great step in life passes through the door of discomfort. And when you step through that door, you feel the strength rising inside you. Not strength from the outcome, but strength from the fact that you dared to move. Once you understand this, you no longer fear discomfort. You seek it the way someone goes to the gym. You use it to train your will. You use it to build resilience. You use it to shape a version of yourself no one can shake. And the beautiful part is that when you do this long enough, what once scared you becomes normal. What once made you tremble becomes easy. What once made you avoid becomes what you choose. You are not just stronger, you become unbreakable. Discomfort does not disappear, but you become someone who lives inside it with calmness. And that is what creates the dangerous confidence others cannot explain. When you reach this level, you begin seeing the world differently. You no longer fear challenges. You no longer fear failure. You no longer fear discomfort. You have transformed fear into strength. And in this moment, you are ready to step into the next part of the journey, where you learn to use words with weight by speaking less but speaking right. Sure, the true power of words does not lie in quantity but in weight. And as you enter this part of the journey, you will realize that the world does not respect those who speak the most, but those who speak with precision. People who talk excessively often do so to seek attention, to fill silence, to prove themselves, to make others believe in them. But those who are truly strong do not need any of that. They speak little, yet every sentence they choose makes others pause and listen. They do not speak to fill space. They do not speak to satisfy the ego. They do not speak to win a conversation. They speak because the words need to be spoken. And to become such a person, you must learn to reduce your words so you can increase the weight of each one. I want you to imagine a movie scene. You sit in a meeting where everyone is trying to show their importance. Voices overlap, ideas spill out one after another. Everyone tries to claim correctness and be heard. In the past, you would have tried to squeeze your voice into that stream, searching for an opening to talk, trying to present your point quickly to show that you were present and valuable. But this time, you sit still, observing, letting each word pass like waves. You do not need to speak to feel valuable. You do not need to fight for seconds to be heard. You let others reveal their lack of control through how much they talk. You focus only on what matters. Then, when the noise starts to settle, when everyone has spoken enough to show their impatience, you speak. You say one sentence, short, clear, with no excess and no looping. No one can ignore that sentence because it carries a calmness no one else in the room possesses. In that moment, all eyes turn to you, not because you spoke a lot, but because you spoke at the right time and spoke to the heart of the issue. That is the power of restraint. When you speak less, you listen more. When you listen more, you understand more. When you understand more, you speak more accurately. When you speak more accurately, you become stronger. And when you become stronger, you no longer need many words to prove it. People with strong inner power always control the pace of their speech, not rushed, not frantic, not pulled by the tempo of others. They know that their silence is sometimes sharper than 1,000 words, and that is exactly what sets them apart in every room they enter. Imagine the second movie scene. You are in a debate. The person in front of you starts increasing speed. Their words sharpen, their emotions rise. They try to push you into responding, but you do not fall into that trap. You keep your breath steady. You let a few seconds of silence pass. Then you answer with a slow, deep, short sentence. Your words slice straight into the core without needing force. The other person pauses because they realize you are not someone they can provoke. You are not pulled into emotional warfare. You are not a reacting object. You are someone who chooses every word with intention. When you become someone who speaks little but speaks right, you naturally earn respect without demanding it. People start paying attention the moment you open your mouth. They wait for your words because they know you will never speak nonsense. You become someone whose voice carries weight because you have trained yourself to speak from awareness instead of impulse. The important thing to understand is that speaking less does not mean being timid or silent out of fear. Speaking less is a choice. Speaking less is control. Speaking less is how you signal that you do not need to follow the chaos of others. You hold the advantage because you know you are speaking from clarity, not from confusion. When you reduce unnecessary words, you reduce unnecessary mistakes. Many people ruin relationships not because of wrong actions, but because they talk too much when they are angry, tired, or unclear. They reveal their fears in their speech. They release words that cannot be taken back. They start battles that should never have existed. If they paused in silence for a few seconds, everything would have been different. Think about this. Silence protects you from the destruction caused by uncontrolled speech. But speaking correctly earns you deep respect from others. Combining both is the foundation of dangerous confidence. When you speak little but speak right, you control your words, you control your emotions, you control the situation. You do not let instinct carry you away. You do not let emotions cloud your insight. You do not let haste damage your image. People who talk a lot may get others to hear them, but people who speak right get others to respect them. And those who respect you will not underestimate you. Those who respect you will not cross your boundaries. Those who respect you will listen to you even when you speak very little. When you step into this role, you carry the calmness of someone who does not need to fight for dominance in every conversation. You use words only to create value, to clarify what matters, to direct the path, nothing more, nothing less. And that restraint becomes your presence. The one who is not pulled by noise is always the one noticed the most. From here, you move to the next part of the journey, where you learn to turn rejection into fuel that pushes you further instead of something that stops you. Shiyi. Rejection is one of the most painful human experiences, yet it is also one of the moments with the greatest power to strengthen you if you know how to receive it. As you enter this part of the journey, I want you to clearly feel that rejection is not your ending, but a refining process that removes what is unworthy, so something better can stay in your life. People often see rejection as a verdict that they are not good enough, that they are wrong, that they are lesser, that they do not deserve what they want. Because of that, when they are rejected, they shrink, withdraw, retreat, letting the pain dictate their actions. But the truth is, you have overcome many rejections without even realizing it. From a door that did not open, you found a better one. From someone who turned their back on you, you discovered you had placed your expectations in the wrong place. From an opportunity that was not yours, you learned a lesson you would need later. Rejection has never been your enemy. It is a signal telling you that a different path, stronger and more fitting, is waiting for you. I want you to imagine a movie scene. You stand in front of someone and hear them say no. Your body tightens a little, your breath drops, an emptiness appears in your chest, as if you just lost something important. In the past, you would have felt judged. You would have believed you lacked value. You would have let rejection become proof that you should not try again. But this time is different. You hear the rejection, and you do not sink into the pain. You stand still, keeping your spine straight like a tree against the wind. You let the emotion touch you, and then pass. You do not blame yourself. You do not make yourself smaller. You do not turn the rejection into something larger than it truly is. You simply observe and whisper within that this does not define me. In that moment, you take back the power people often lose when facing rejection. Because you understand rejection is only a reflection of someone else's perspective, not the truth of your worth. Imagine the second movie scene. You submit a project, an idea, a proposal, and receive the no you feared. A wave of questions floods your mind. Why not? What did I do wrong? What do they think of me? But this time, you do not let your mind spiral. You ask yourself a different question. What is this rejection trying to teach me? You review everything, not with the eyes of someone blaming themselves, but with the eyes of someone who wants to grow. Maybe you need to upgrade your skills. Maybe you need clearer goals. Maybe you need a different direction. Maybe you need to remove what does not fit. Rejection becomes a map instead of a wound. When you look at rejection this way, you turn it from a barrier into fuel. You do not step back. You do not weaken. You use it to go further than the person who rejected you. And the most interesting part is that years later, when you look back, you will see that you needed that no to reach a better place. Rejection becomes something you no longer want to avoid, but something you feel grateful for. The strong are not the ones who have never been rejected. The strong are the ones who do not let rejection decide their path. They do not let one no end their effort. They do not let one failure crush their will. They do not let someone's judgment stop their growth. The strong know rejection may hurt briefly, but will ultimately push them further. I want you to imagine the third movie scene. You see someone close a door in front of you, but instead of walking away with a sense of being cast out, you step back a few steps, take a deep breath, look again, and then you find another way. You do not need someone to open the door for you. You carve your own path. This is what makes you unbeatable. Rejection may slow you, but it cannot stop you unless you allow it, and you will not allow it anymore. Because the older you grow, the more you realize that the person rejecting you often does not truly know who you are or where you are heading. They judge you through their limited perspective. You cannot let that limited perspective define your life. When you turn rejection into fuel, you become calmer. You understand that every no brings you closer to the yes meant for you. You understand that every closed door is life protecting you from the wrong place. You understand that rejection does not make you smaller but sharper, and all of that creates a form of confidence that is almost unbreakable. Confidence does not come from always being accepted, but from no longer fearing rejection. And when you reach that state, you step into the next part of the journey, where you learn to detach yourself from all outcomes, so you can live from inner strength instead of living based on what happens outside of you. CR. True confidence only forms when you detach your self-worth from every outcome. As long as you treat external results as the measurement of your value, you will always live in fear of failure and insecurity in the face of success. You will feel good when things go well and feel worthless when things fall apart. You will let a bad outcome destroy the way you see yourself. You will let one mistake make you forget everything you did right. You will let success make you complacent and failure make you paralyzed. But when you learn to detach your worth from your results, you no longer move according to the unpredictable rhythm of life. You become someone who lifts yourself, steadies yourself, and anchors yourself. You are no longer easily shaken by winning or losing. I want you to imagine a movie scene. You stand in front of an evaluation, a decision, a response you did not expect. The old you would immediately feel like a failure. You would tell yourself that you were not good enough. You would treat the outcome as proof that you were unworthy, that you should stop. But this time, you pull your shoulders back, look straight into the situation, and say silently within yourself, "This is data, not a definition of me." In that moment, you take your power back. When you detach your worth from the outcome, you realize that results are only reflections of moments, not reflections of who you are. They are simply information pointing toward what needs improvement. They are never final statements about your identity. Imagine learning a new skill. In the beginning, you get more things wrong than right. You make mistakes constantly. You see no progress. If you attach your worth to those results, you will think you lack talent. You will compare yourself to people who are ahead. You will feel insecure and want to quit. But if you detach your worth from the outcome, you see those mistakes as a natural stage of the learning process. You understand that today's results say nothing about tomorrow's results. You understand that you simply need time, practice, and patience. When you see things this way, small failures no longer break you. You become resilient. And resilient people always surpass talented people who are easily discouraged. Imagine the second movie scene. You just experienced something that made you feel like you lost a part of yourself. It might be a broken relationship, a failed project, a missed opportunity. The old you would treat this as proof that you were not enough, that something was wrong with you, that you deserved the negative outcome. But now, you see everything from the perspective of someone who has moved further. You know that what happens outside can never define you. A failed relationship does not mean you are unlovable. A failed project does not mean you are not creative. A lost opportunity does not mean you are not capable. These things simply mean the timing was wrong, the method was wrong, or the direction was wrong, but they never touch your true worth. When you understand this, you stop letting small events carve your identity. You begin to see every outcome as a map, not a sentence. You understand you only need adjustment, not self-destruction. There is enormous freedom in accepting that your worth remains unchanged, even as outcomes change. Your mind becomes lighter, fear decreases, you dare to try more, you experiment more. You put yourself in bigger opportunities because you no longer fear embarrassment or failure. The person who detaches their worth from outcome is the person who is no longer controlled by fear. And someone who is not afraid is far stronger than the majority. Imagine the third movie scene. You are about to enter a new challenge. Before, you would think, what if I fail? What if I am not recognized? What if I am judged? But this time, you ask a single question. What is the worst that could happen? And could that worst take away my worth? The answer is always no. You might lose time, money, effort, opportunity, but you never lose your inherent worth. When you realize this, every risk becomes lighter, every challenge becomes simpler, every step becomes clearer. You no longer fear failure because you understand failure cannot destroy you. It can only teach you. And the person who can learn from failure will always go further than the person who tries to avoid it. When you live without being controlled by outcomes, you become harder to predict, stronger and freer. You are no longer swayed by praise or criticism. You are no longer controlled by validation. You are no longer obsessed with succeeding immediately. You enjoy each step because you know your value is not found in where you arrive, but in who you become on the way there. Detaching worth from outcome is not irresponsibility. It is self-respect strong enough to know that you are worthy, loved, and deserving even before you achieve what you want. When you reach this state, you become not only stronger, but more peaceful. You enter the next part of the journey with a different presence, where you learn to set boundaries with unshakable firmness. Shisan. Boundaries are not walls that separate you from the world, but fences that protect your strength, your time, and your peace. And as you enter this part of the journey, I want you to feel clearly that setting boundaries is not merely an act of self-defense, but the highest expression of self-respect. People without boundaries are always exhausted, always taken advantage of, always pulled into battles that do not belong to them, and always losing themselves in the effort to please others. But people with boundaries always protect their inner calm, always know what belongs to them and what does not, always know when to give and when to pull back, and that clarity creates a stable form of confidence that is not easily shaken. I want you to imagine a movie scene. You stand in the middle of a crowded intersection, people rushing everywhere, each wanting a piece of you, a bit of your time, your energy, your attention. In the past, you would have tried to satisfy everyone, tried not to disappoint anyone, tried to be the pillar for everyone, and eventually ended up drained and exhausted. But this time, you draw a line in front of you and take one step back, not to leave, but to clearly define what is yours and what is not. From that moment, you begin to reclaim ownership of your life. Boundaries are not rejecting others. They are accepting that you have the responsibility to protect yourself so you can continue living according to your values. People with boundaries are not afraid to say no. They know that a clear no is sometimes the kindest act because it does not create false expectations and does not drag them into responsibilities they cannot carry. When you have boundaries, you say no without feeling guilty. You do not over-explain. You do not over-apologize. You simply say no with clarity and calm. And the strange thing is that when you do that, others begin to respect you more. Imagine the second movie scene. You are talking to someone, and they start pushing you into a situation that makes you uncomfortable. In the past, you would endure it. You would force yourself to be polite. You would give a strained smile just to get through it. But now, you straighten your shoulders, look at them with calm eyes, and say a simple sentence, "This is not suitable for me." No anger, no resistance, no outburst. Just a slow and clear statement. In that moment, the energy of the conversation shifts instantly. The other person realizes you are not someone who can be easily violated. You send the signal that you know your worth, and you do not allow anyone to step beyond that line. Boundaries are not just how you protect your space, but how you train your firmness. Those without boundaries often lack consistency because they always put others before themselves. They fear displeasing people so much that they lose themselves. But those with boundaries understand that you cannot become your strongest version if you let anyone control your time, energy, or emotions. To set boundaries, you must be firm with your values. You must know what matters. You must know what must not be crossed. You must know what drains you. You must know what nourishes you. When you are clear about these things, boundaries are no longer something you force yourself to create. They naturally emerge from the way you live. Imagine the third movie scene. You have a new habit you want to keep. Maybe exercising, meditating, journaling, or working on an important project. But someone invites you to do something else, asks you to go out, needs you to help them, and in the past, you would immediately abandon your plan to please them. But this time, you say, "No, I already have plans for this time." You do not apologize. You do not explain. You do not diminish the value of your plans just because they involve no one else. The moment you prioritize your promise to yourself over someone else's invitation is the moment you build a strong layer of boundary, and that layer becomes the foundation of confidence. Because you will never trust yourself if you constantly break your own promises. Boundaries also help you avoid toxic relationships. People who do not respect you continue not respecting you only if you allow them to. When you set boundaries, you filter out those who are not aligned with you. They leave, and though that may hurt for a moment, it creates space for the right people to enter your life. The right people will respect your boundaries. The right people will not push you into situations you do not want. The right people will not require you to sacrifice yourself to earn their acceptance. Boundaries give you the chance to build healthier, deeper, and more genuine relationships. When you set boundaries with firmness, you teach the world how to treat you. You send the message that you are a person of worth, of principles, of self-respect. Others will adjust the way they speak, the way they act, and the way they treat you. Not because you asked, but because you show up with a certainty that does not allow them to act otherwise. When you live this way, your confidence is no longer dependent on whether others accept or respect you. Your confidence comes from you, from the way you stand in your own value, even when no one is watching. And that is the point where dangerous confidence becomes strongest. From here, you step into the next part of the journey, where you learn to remain calm, even in the most chaotic moments, becoming a steady anchor in the storms of life. Inner calm in the midst of chaos is not a state you gain when life is peaceful, but a capacity you train when life turns into a storm. As you enter this part of the journey, I want you to feel clearly that stillness never comes from the outside. It comes from the person who knows how to stand firm even when everything around them is falling apart. Many people think calmness is something only the lucky ones have. But what they do not know is that calmness is a skill, and this skill is built every time you choose to stay steady instead of reacting. Every time you choose to observe instead of panicking. Every time you choose to breathe slowly instead of rushing. Every time you choose to hold your ground instead of matching the chaos of others. Imagine a movie scene. You are standing in a room where everyone is anxious, voices rising, breaths quickening, noise vibrating through the air. In the past, you would have been swept away by it, heart pounding, thoughts scrambling, body tightening, as if something terrible was coming. But this time, you choose to stay still for one beat. You inhale deeply and exhale slowly. When you do that, what changes is not the situation, but you. You feel your body become lighter, the room feels less heavy, and your mind opens a space wide enough to see clearly. You are no longer controlled by the chaos. You are controlling yourself. And in that moment, you become the person others naturally turn to because of the stability you carry. This is the essence of someone who remains calm in chaos. They do not avoid the storm. They stand firm at the center of it. When you know how to stay calm, you change the quality of every action. A panicked person can destroy a situation. A calm person can save an entire day. Not because they are smarter, but because they are clearer. Not because they are stronger, but because they are steadier. Imagine the second movie scene. You face an unexpected situation, a bad piece of news at work, a heated argument, a family crisis, or a moment full of pressure where everyone loses control. While others rush to speak, rush to conclude, rush to act, you take one mental step backward. You observe everything as if watching the scene from above. You do not let emotion take over your mind. You let your mind lead your emotion. This reversal gives you an advantage almost no one else has. In chaos, people fall into reaction, but you step into awareness. They hurry, but you stay calm. They lose control, but you remain focused. This makes you the natural anchor in every situation. Imagine the third movie scene. You are facing a difficult decision with time running out. People around you share conflicting opinions, even pressuring you. Before, you would be swallowed by anxiety, pushed into a rushed choice just to ease tension. But this time, you go silent for a moment. You feel your feet grounded, your breath steady, and your mind returning to clarity. You do not decide from fear but from intention. And when you speak your choice, your voice is not loud, but it carries weight because it comes from calmness, not panic. Someone who stays calm in chaos sees life through the lens of someone who understands everything is temporary. Storms come and storms go. Hardships appear and disappear. Every stressful moment is simply a test to measure how well you control your emotions. Those who do not understand this are swept away by the waves. Those who do understand become the ones steering their own ship. Calmness is not how you avoid emotion. It is how you avoid letting emotion steer you. A calm person still feels pain, fear, sadness, anger, but they do not respond impulsively. They choose their response as someone in control. One slow breath can change the rhythm of an entire day. One moment of silence can change the outcome of a conversation. One mental half-step backward can completely change the way you see the problem. And when you practice this long enough, you become the person you once admired. The one who never rushes, the one who does not let fear lead, the one who is not shaken by external noise, the one who stands firm even when everything around is collapsing. This is the kind of person others want to follow, not because they are loud, not because they pretend to be strong, but because they are the one place where people feel safe. Remaining calm in chaos makes you dangerous in the most beautiful way. You become someone who cannot be moved easily, someone who cannot be provoked easily, someone who makes even the most hot-headed people lower their voices, someone whose presence forces chaos itself to slow down. And when you reach this level, you are ready to enter the final part of the journey, where you learn how to live as if nothing outside of you is needed for you to feel whole and complete. Shiwu, the ultimate power in this journey is when you learn to live as if you need nothing to be whole. Not because you no longer desire anything, but because you no longer depend on anything outside of yourself to feel complete. As you enter this final part, I want you to feel that the greatest freedom in life does not come from having more, but from no longer being bound by what you once believed you must have. People often measure their worth through approval, success, relationships, or possessions. They think they need a little more, need to be a little better, need to be loved a little more to feel full. But the truth is, you have always been enough. The sense of lack you feel does not come from what you do not have, but from what you believe you must have. When you release that belief, you become free in a way that others may never understand. I want you to imagine a movie scene. You stand on a high hill, wind brushing your shoulders, the sky vast and deep, as if inviting you to take the next step. You look back on the long journey you have walked, the rejections, the trembling moments, the chaos you stood through, the silences you embraced, the boundaries you set, the fears you faced, and you realize something extraordinary, that everything you thought you needed from the world is nothing compared to what you discovered within yourself. You realize you do not need approval to be strong. You do not need perfect results to be valuable. You do not need praise to know who you are. You do not need to control everything to walk the right path. You do not need to avoid fear to be calm. You do not need to defeat anyone to conquer yourself. When you live as if you need nothing to be whole, you become the freest person in the room, the freest person in your own life. Every action you take comes from choice, not fear. Every decision comes from clarity, not scarcity. Every step comes from inner strength, not from waiting for someone to give you what you think you lack. And the strange thing is that when you no longer need anything, life brings you more than you ever chased, not because you pursue it, but because you radiate fullness, making the world want to move toward you. This is the highest point of dangerous confidence. You do not need to prove anything. You simply need to be. You do not need to chase anything. You simply need to walk in alignment with who you are. You do not need anyone to give you worth. You are the source of that worth. And from here, your journey does not end. It begins anew, where you live with complete freedom, unshakable calm, and a kind of power that nothing in this world can break. You have just walked through the entire journey of dangerous confidence, mastering the inner voice, breaking free from the need for approval, commanding silence, holding boundaries, facing discomfort, and finally living as if you need nothing to be whole. If you are listening up to this point, it means you are ready to step into the strongest version of yourself. Remember that power does not come from outer noise but from inner stillness. Not from how others see you, but from your willingness to stand in your own value. Thank you for taking the time to listen. If this message gave you a new perspective or a spark of motivation, please like the video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel to continue this journey with me. Your presence is always appreciated.